Hey there guys, welcome back to the meat shop. In this episode I'm going to show you how to tie roasts. I'll be using an outside flat / outside round, and basically just going to show you what a butcher's doing while they're tying a roast to help the chef or to help the cook make it more presentable and such. I'm also going to show you the butcher's knot. So that's the knot that butchers use. There's two, I use one basically. Well, there's kind of three. There's a bunch of different techniques, I should say. But we'll show you basically the simplest one so that you can tie up your own roast at home if you butcher your own animal. Show you what you should be looking for while tying and all that good stuff. So if you like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and give me some feedback down in the comments below. Thanks guys, stay tuned. Okay guys, so for the how to tie a roast video, all you need is some butcher twine. It kind of comes in different diameter stuff. I use the medium diameter. You can get really thick stuff, medium thickness stuff, and the really fine stuff. The really fine stuff you see in high-end butcher shops where they're making like chicken cushions or stuffed rolled London broils and stuff like that. But this medium one is the best. The reason being the coarse ones are just a little bit too coarse. If you rub your roast down with stuff, you'll lose some seasonings on them and they're not as visually appealing. The medium ones are still strong enough because we'll be pulling them tight to get a conformed shape out of our roast. So the medium ones are still strong enough, and the fine ones they're very delicate. They're not the best. They'll cut into the meat for jobs like this and they'll break lots. So medium is your most versatile. That's what you need. You'll need a little container or something to pop the string in, a knife for cutting your string, and the piece of meat. Like I said in the intro, I am using an outside flat, which is an outside round, and it comes off the hip of the beef. It's down there, kind of in the butt, and runs down the leg. So it's not the world's most tender cut because the animal is using this a lot when it's walking around. It's expanding and contracting a bunch. There's a big piece of silver skin band down there. We'll trim all that up. But so it's not the world's most tender cut. It's no prime rib, but it's still a really good roast for crock potting or broiling in the oven, braising, stuff like that. It makes wicked stew, stir fry, or you can grind them up into ground beef. So that's that guy. We'll be doing this, and the methods that we're going to use for tying basically apply to all the roasts you're going to tie. You can pick these guys up pretty much anywhere. The nicest part is they're real cheap. One of the cheaper cuts. It's comparable kind of to an inside round or an eye of round roasts / primal. This is a primal, subprimal off of the hip. The hip is the primal. So anyways, they all come cryovac. If you buy them by the case, they're a little bit cheaper. But we'll just open this up and get it ready to tie. Because before you put any strings on, you want to make sure you have all the gristle and fat taken down to a 1/4 inch, or if it's body cavity fat, removed completely. So I'll just take my string, pop him under my butcher table, because I find if it's on the table, it's going to be rolling around on you, or it does roll around, and it's hard to control. So if it's underneath, you're using gravity, it keeps the string straight. All right, so this guy, as you can see, this is the outside piece. So this is outside fat. This is the good stuff. Inside here, this is seam fat, which is we're going to be removing. If you can kind of see that inside seam fat, that stuff all has to come off. There is a little bit of there's a big band of silver skin here. All this sort of stuff you want to look for, depending on what roast you're doing. If you have an outside round roast, this kind of counts as a 2-for-1 video. How to tie roast and how to prepare a outside round. I should grab a steel. I'll be right back. Okay, also a steel. Good quality steel is always useful in the kitchen or in the butcher shop. And you're steeling it at an angle of about 15 to 20 degrees. Okay, so you just get underneath that big silver skin band. If you're not wasting too much meat, you want to leave the red stuff on the meat. Red stuff being the meat. And we'll clean them up. Just get underneath again if you missed any. Clean it up. That's unchewable stuff. I had some guys comment in some of my other videos there that they save these and they bake them in their oven until they're real crisp and they make dog treats out of them. So that's a cool thing you can do with them instead of throwing them out. This seam fat, you can save it for making sausages and stuff like that down the road, or adding to ground beef if you have some really lean beef or something in your, or wild game meat if you have some of that kicking around from fall. But basically we're just getting underneath, taking care of this seam fat. This fat here. Get some of this stuff off here. You're just looking for heavy bits of silver skin, bone skin, where in the plants they rip the meat off of the bones using gravity and a lot of force sometimes. So this thin, kind of unchewable bone skin layer stuff is stuck on the meat. So you want to take care of that. Any bits of blood clots. You kind of see like the bit of seam. Sometimes they cross over from one cut to another. Get rid of that. If it's got some red in it, guys, and you want to save it for hunting season stuff, you can. I'm gonna make a waste pile, aka dog snack pile. A little bit of lean meat I could have saved off there. And that big silver band on the outside round or the outside flat is kind of difficult to get without leaving a little bit of meat on it, because if you can see, it's kind of got like this big triangle, focus on me, focus, in it. So it's kind of dipped like this. So it's hard not to leave a little bit of meat on it, but just trim that off and save it for later. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Flip it over to this side, take it down. This is the outside piece, so this is outside fat. This is nice stuff. It's got lots of flavor. But you want to take it down to, I take it down to 1/4 inch. You can take it down to whatever you like. Some people like a lot of beef fat. So leave a lot of beef fat. It's basically the rule. And then down this side, there's usually a heavy little strip. So clean that up. Okay, so that's all you got to do to an outside round. You can do this yourself. It takes 5 minutes. I don't even think we're 5 minutes into this video yet. So on the outside round here, you have kind of like a point, and then it tapers down and gets flat. You can kind of see this end is thicker and this end is thinner. And there's 2 different sets of muscles in here. So these muscles are kind of running this way. And then there's a strip along here that runs this way. So they're kind of running different directions. What you can do is you can take this piece, and you can almost see there's always going to be a hard piece of fat. And that's where the seam is. Basically, if you look at it from this angle here, there's a hard piece of silver skin right there, and you can follow that down and flip this onto itself. I'll probably do that today, because what you want to do, that's going to help this end. This end's almost useless because it's so flat. You tie it up, it doesn't look that good. Versus if you can get your roast to be a uniform shape and size, whoever's cooking it has a way easier job of cooking it. It's going to be done at the same time. You're not going to have a well done burnt end and a rare end. It's all going to be uniform and the same. So I will do that real quick. Take a little bit more of this fat off, seam fat. So that we have a uniform shape and size. If you don't want to do that, if it's a little bit too hard, it's really not going to affect this roast too much, because it's kind of a bit of a slow cooker roast and whatnot anyway. So it doesn't really matter. It just makes a little bit prettier end product. And everyone knows in the food presentation, how it looks really affects people's perception of how good it is. But if you aren't going to tie it, what you would do is you would start tying at the biggest point, the thickest point of the roast here. So you would just look at it, and that's about here. going to be the most dense, most round. The reason you do that is because it sucks it up and pushes it out the ends. So let's tie a string around here, right here. It would suck that up and then push some of it that way. So you'd have kind of a more uniform shape. Versus if you just start at this end and work your way that way, you're going to have a football shape of a roast. So it's not going to cook as well. But I'll just do this quickly here. Following that seam, you mark right down. Once you see the seam, you stay right on it. Not quite cutting all the way through. Some people call this the barbecue style outside round. There's a bunch of, depending on where you're at in the world, I think down in Australia they call these silvers. You just cut that down. So now that's going to sit up like that. It's going to be a uniform shape, but I'm going to trim it up here first. Knock some, and now that the silver skin is also exposed, you can knock that out. Of course, you're losing a little bit of weight if you're a retail cutter, but it makes it a little bit better end product if you're just doing this. If you bought this wholesale from Costco or from your local butcher, it's going to make a better end product. Less chewy stuff. People will be amazed at the beef you serve them. That's really easy. I take this bit of fat off because you want just fat on one side. If there's fat on both sides of your roast, people kind of tend to get grossed out by the amount of fat there is. Not me, I love beef fat. And if you love beef fat, I understand you're probably crying watching this. But save it. Save it and we'll put it in a sausage one day, or we'll grind it into some lean stuff, some wild game, deer, elk, moose. Save it for that. If you have a dog, you can turn it into dog food. I don't know if dogs eat straight fat, but okay. So I got that leaned up. I carve that up a bit. Don't want to be doing that. That's waste. Well, no, it's not waste. Save it. But I should have done a better job. That shouldn't have been hanging off. Okay. A little bit more silver skin. And it's really worth it just to take the little bit of time using your sharp knife to get this stuff off, because it does make a difference in the end. Okay, so now it's a little bit more uniform shape versus before. See how flat that is, big on this side, flat on this side. You kind of bring that up and we'll tie that and it'll be more uniform. The key is to try and make it as uniform before you start tying as you can, taking bones out and such. And this side's got its 1/4 inch fat, so it's good to go. I usually put the flat side down of a roast and start working from there. So like I said before, you can obviously see in this one now, this is where you would put your first tie. And you can space them out however close you want. You want to string every 3/4 of an inch. It'll look really nice at the end. You can go every couple inches if you're just doing big portions, but always start at the kind of highest, most dense point, because it will shrink it down and push it out so that it's more uniform. Okay, now we got this ready. You guys have to learn how to tie the butcher's knot. I'll show you that right now. Okay guys, and real quick before I show you the butcher's knot, I'll give you an up close look to see what I'm kind of talking about. So I took that, flipped it over onto this to make it a more uniform shape. You can see there was a big silver skin band down here. We took it off. We trimmed off this let's see, there's like a little bit, you know, that little bit's not gonna affect a whole bunch. If you want to get real fussy, you can get rid of all of that stuff and it'll make it a little bit better for sure. So that's all trimmed up, ready to go. And as I was trying to show you before, that seam, it's kind of what it looks like before I carved into it. There. So that seam is right here on the point. This is the flat end. This is the point end. You'll just mark down right there. Not cutting all the way. It's still attached right here. There's a little membrane right there of meat. And that flops over to give you a nice square cut. Okay. So that's the outside round. Prepped. Ready to go. Now it's butcher knot time. Okay guys. This is a bit of a pain because I'm shooting with the camera between me and the piece of the meat. But you start at the thickest, densest piece, which is about right there. That's, like I said, it's going to flatten that out and push it out so it's more uniform. Okay, so here's the butcher's knot. You have the end string in your left hand and this string, which is attached to the roll underneath the table, in your right hand. So the left hand goes under. So you got the string has come over to the right hand. So you grab it with the right hand. So it's basically left hand end string, right hand attached to the string, under. Hold it with your index and thumb. Grab this side, the left hand that's been controlling the string, and make a loop. Make a loop while holding the end string between your index and thumb. So again, it's under, grab the string with your index and thumb, loop, and then go take that end string that's between your index and thumb, go over everything, under and through that loop you made. Okay? So, again, string left hand, under, index thumb, loop, over everything, under and through. Then, it's going to be difficult for me. Oops, sorry. You pull it until you hear a snap. Oops, sorry guys, and it should be square. I'm at an arm's length right now because the camera is between me and the roast. So it should be, string should be up and down. You don't want your string tied on an angle because it's going to affect the end look. So you pull it down till it's good and tight. It will snap if you pull too hard. Then make a loop, aka a half hitch, with the string that is attached to the string under the table. Make a loop, pull it around that bit of string, and pull it tight. That is the first butcher knot. And you see how that sucked that down and it kind of pushed it a little bit this way? Oh, I'm not fingering you guys, I'm sorry. See how that sucked that down, pushed it that way, and pushed it that way a little bit? That's what we want to aim to do. We're going to keep doing that. So, again, however thick, however many strings you want to, spacing you want to do, you go ahead and do that. I'm going to do them pretty close so it makes a pretty cool end roast. And for all the retail cutters that are watching and judging this, there are some beautiful roast tires on Instagram. I am not the most beautiful, but you want to get your strings, the little knots, to line up. If you're trying to score points in a retail cutting contest, they need to line up. It'll look better in the end. Sorry, I'll go through that knot one more time in slow motion for you. And then I will go work around this camera to the next highest spot, right? Because you're always wanting to push it down and flat. Snap, suck it tight, line it up with those other strings, keep the spacing between the strings even, roughly even as you can, and cut it down. Sorry, I forgot to explain it again. Good thing there's a bunch of strings to tie. Go around, working around this camera. Okay, so again, one last refresher. End string left hand, string attached to the string under the table right hand, under, index thumb, loop, over, under, through, spacing the same, roughly the same. If you're doing it at home, no one's going to judge you. But I'm doing this on the internet, so someone will judge me. Which is fine. Confessedly, I'm not the prettiest roast tire. Then you do that half hitch. So you got the end string on the left side there. Half hitch or loop. Put that string through and pull it. Okay? Then cut it off. So see how that's kind of becoming a more uniform shape and size? I'm having a real tough time working around this dang camera. All right, I'm gonna switch back to the other angle there, guys. But so, you bring it over, whoops. Go to the most highest, largest circumference area. Get the strings roughly spaced apart the same. Under, loop, over and through till it snaps. I'm not sure if you guys have been able to hear that snap, but loop and tie. All right, I'm gonna put that camera back to the other angle so I can show you guys I am not this horrible of a roast tire. Okay there guys, so I'm just gonna show you from the other angle here because I was having a tough time working around the camera. But see how that's the highest point? It's kind of become more flat, uniform in shape. So I got the end string in my left hand, string that's attached to string under the table in my right hand. Just come underneath like it's a giant tooth you're gonna floss. Wrap it around the next highest spot, down, around, until they snap. And again, you want to keep the spacing even as possible, getting those strings lined up on this side. I'll show you the end product here in just 1 second. Of course, you want to keep the strings in the garbage pile so they don't end up going through your grinder or into your little stew pile. Using the medium string, nice sharp knife. Oh, and I should have mentioned too, guys, with this outside round roast, the grade makes a big difference. So down in the States, you guys would want to be using a USDA, I'm up in Canada, Choice, not Prime. Prime's the best of the best, but Choice works pretty good. Reason being, it comes off the hip, so it's a little bit tougher. So that intermuscular marbling you're going to get from a Choice beef, which is, for you Canadians out there, a AAA, it's gonna help the flavor a ton and kind of compensate for the fact that it's a little bit, you have to cook it in the oven maybe a little bit longer. It's gonna give it more flavor, and it comes from that intermuscular marbling, which a well-finished, well-fed beef accumulates. But see how it's kind of starting to look more like a uniform log here rather than a big lump of meat. And the same thing goes if you were tying a inside round, if you were tying a chuck roast, if you were tying any roast. You want to kind of start where it's thickest, tie it down. And when you get to the ends, there's going to be some ends that, it's torpedo shaped. You're not going to be able to do much with it. So we will square them off and save the meat from the squared end for something else. Stew, stir fry, sausage, ground beef, all that good stuff. Okay. Trying to keep the string space. And like I said, if you're cooking, if you want 4 or 5 pound roasts instead of 2 3 pound roasts, you can space the strings out. You would only need maybe every other string on this roast versus, this kind of 3/4 inch spacing I'm doing. Keep them strings out of there. But if you're doing, this on the Traeger, on the smoker, or over a pit or something like that, all these strings kind of add to the visual appeal of it. If you can keep them even, if you can keep the knots in a line, Also, I should have mentioned too, if you have some like decorative herbs, if you wanted to throw a sprig of rosemary on and then take your string, rosemary's underneath right here. We'll say this is a piece of rosemary. I should have had that. I should have thought ahead of time for you guys. And you would just loop it underneath and tie it down to it. And you'd have these lovely little sprigs of rosemary or thyme or some sage, if you guys like sage or whatever. There, and that really adds that little green contrast. Is a nice touch on the red meat. Okay, so this is the last one we'll do here. And then I will bring the camera back around to this side. I'm sure there's some retail cutters out there laughing at how much time that took. But there, it's kind of more uniform shape and size. It tapers off on this end a little bit. And so are all your cuts. All your cuts are going to be that way probably. But this helps it a lot. So I'll bring you back around this side and show you how to square it off, where to cut. Okay, so we're back on this side here. And see how the strings are roughly spaced out the same. So you'll be making your cuts in between each one of those. If we were to get, real particular. These strings all should have been in a straight line. They're not bad, it's just a little bit off. But before we do that, we will want to stake off the ends. You can see looking at that, either end there is kind of tapered. Not only that, but on an outside round, this end here is kind of a little bit brown because they usually send them through a pasteurization process, the carcass that is, and it actually gets a little bit cooked in that process. You look at this, you might go, oh, that's gross. Focus on that a little bit. Focus, focus. There we go. See, that looks kind of cooked, and you got this stuff which is nice and red, looks good. But it's actually just from the pasteurization process. We'll save that for sausage and such. Square off that end. Let's go focus on my piece of meat again. And same with this one, because it's kind of torpedo shaped. Square that off. Okay, so now we have a squared off barbecue style. Now you could leave that whole. If you had the little rosemaries, they'd be tucked underneath the strings there and it would look real good. Season that up with your favorite rub, throw it on the tray or whatever. But I'm just gonna cut these guys down into about 3-4 pounders. Now see that intramuscular marbling? It doesn't have actually, you know, for AAA it could have more. But this stuff here is gonna add a lot to the flavor. It's gonna help keep the meat moist. There's the strings, even all the way around. Not a perfect line. I'm sorry, retail butchers out there that are watching this. Yeah, 3-4 pounders. And when you're doing this cut, working around this camera again, you want to keep it as straight as possible between the strings. You don't want to end up cutting your strings. Come around the side here. Beautiful. Another thing I forgot to mention when this guy was in the vacuum package, and see there's that one muscle and the second muscle that's tied onto it. Nice uniform shape though, right? Versus before it would have come off of here and been tapered, and you would have tied it and it kind of would have been a big C shape versus this beautiful round shape. Another thing you can do, you know, you get that choice or AAA outside round, you get that marbling, which helps, but you can leave it, if you got the production date, leave it in your refrigerator between 0 and 5 degrees Celsius, 32 and 38 degrees Fahrenheit. I keep saying 38 degrees Fahrenheit. I should really check that. I don't operate in Fahrenheit. But in that temperature range for 30 days, because it's going to tenderize the meat and deepen that beef flavor because of the natural lactic acid that builds up in here. We can do that with all the cuts. In every video, you can apply that to beef. You don't need to do it with pork. But there you go, guys. You got 4 lovely AAA outside round roasts, and you now know how to tie the butcher's knot. So those are the things that a butcher's doing. You got a little scrap pile from the ends here. Ends in my bad trimming job. It's in a bit of a rush. You got a little fat pile that you can save and add to sausage. And then you have a little trim pile that some of my friends cook for their dogs. All right, guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like and share, and leave me some comments down below if I missed anything. Thanks again, guys. Take care.